Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Sam. I'm a professional hairstylist, and in today's video, we are going to be talking about popular hair myths. I had asked you guys over on Instagram a long time ago to send me some hair myths that you have always heard, weren't sure if they're true or not, and I have a whole list here. I'm gonna go through all of these, tell you whether they're true or not, explain them, where they came from. The first one, this is probably one of the most popular ones. I feel like you hear this one all the time in movies and TV shows especially, and that is, if you pluck out a gray hair, 3 more will come to its funeral. 2, 3 more. The point is, if you pull out a gray hair, more will grow in its place. And this is a complete myth, totally not true at all. I don't even know where this one really came from. Basically what gray hair is a lack of melanin. So you'll start having strands of hair that grow in without any pigment at all, just white hairs. And this can happen from aging, stress, hormones. There's a lot of different things that can make a person start to go gray, and you just don't really have control over it. Say you have a gray hair and you pluck it out, another gray strand will grow back in its place, because that's just how our body works. Our hairs shed naturally and then more hair grows in its place. If you pluck it out prematurely, another hair is going to grow in its place just like it would whether it fell out on its own or not. Does that make sense? And if it was a gray hair that you pulled out, then a gray hair is most likely going to grow back in that spot, but it's not going to promote more gray hair growth. But you will gradually over time start to get more just naturally, but it has nothing to do with the fact that you pulled it out. Anyway, total myth. If you have a gray hair and you want to pluck it out, go for it. I don't recommend pulling your hair out, but it's not going to make you get grayer any faster. The next one, this is something, any hairstylists who are watching this are probably going to giggle at this, because I'm sure this is something that you have been told many times by clients in the past, and that is, my hair pulls very warm. And listen, this is something that I have said myself as a client before I knew any better, so I'm not trying to make fun or, throw shade at anybody who says this. Clients sometimes, when you're doing their color, especially if you're lightening them, they will tell you, just so you know, my hair pulls very warm, like it gets very orange. This is not that it's a myth that it's not true, but it's a myth in the sense that everyone's hair pulls warm. Everyone, like every human, unless you're albino, I guess. Even if your hair naturally is already light, even if your hair is naturally very ashy. So hair, regardless of the color of it, it's made up of underlying pigment. So I'm going to show you guys a hair level chart. These are all of the levels of hair starting from the darkest to the lightest. And you can see on top of the chart, that is the underlying pigment that's in all of these colors. So depending on how dark your hair is, the underlying pigments start from red, orange, gold, up to yellow. But regardless of where you lie on the chart, if you look at that top row, they are all warm tones. No one's hair naturally lifts to a beautiful, cool, icy, silvery color. It's just not how it works. That's what toners are used for. Oh, the next one, shaving your hair will make it grow in fuller and darker. This is a really common one. It is completely false, a total myth. Think of a plant, right? You have the seed and the plant grows out of the seed. The follicle is kind of like the seed. The hair grows out of it. You have the follicle underneath the skin. So let's say your skin is here, the follicle is underneath, and you have the hair that's growing out of the follicle up out of the skin, right? And when you have a fresh strand of hair, it just naturally grows with a really nice, fine, kind of thinner tip to it. Now, when you go and you shave your hair, all you're doing is you're cutting that hair at the skin level. And when you're cutting it, you're creating a really blunt cut. So now that hair obviously is going to just continue growing. That's just how life works. Our skin cells, our hair, everything is always continuously growing and shedding, and it's just like a continuous cycle. So once you shave that hair, you're cutting it at the skin level, but then it's going to continue growing out. But now, rather than having that really fine, soft tip, it has a really blunt tip because you shaved it, you cut it that way. So now when it's growing out, because it's more blunt, it just looks thicker, it looks darker, it looks a little bit fuller, it itches more, you like notice it more. And so that's why it can seem like the hair is thicker and darker, but it isn't actually. Now, if you were to tweeze or wax or thread that hair, you're pulling the hair completely out of the follicle. So now when that hair grows back in, it's not that same piece of hair that you just cut off, you removed it completely. So now it's a brand new hair. That's also why when you shave your hair, it seems to grow back in a lot quicker because it doesn't have to form a new hair strand. The hair is already still there living under the skin. It's just growing out of it. So it'll grow back in a couple of days, whereas opposed to if you pull it out of the follicle completely, it'll take like a couple of weeks. Shaving your hair is not necessarily stimulating growth or making it grow any faster or thicker. The next myth is that if you have head lice, that means you are gross and disgusting and your hair is dirty, and lice loves to live on dirty hair. Anyone can get head lice. All you have to do is get in contact with somebody else who has it, share a brush or a hat or even a shirt. Anything that's rubbing up or touching their head and then touching yours can transfer the lice onto your head. And it's super common in children. It spreads a lot in elementary schools. So if you have a kid or a younger sibling that's in school around other children, you're probably going to be more likely to get it because you're just like more exposed to it. But lice actually love to live on a clean scalp. If you think about it, they need to be able to breathe. They need oxygen. They need good blood flow. If your head is really, really dirty, your hair has a lot of buildup in it, your scalp has a lot of buildup, the lice aren't going to be able to move around as freely. They're not going to get that nice oxygen flow, and they're not going to be able to get the blood from your scalp. Not saying that you shouldn't take care of your scalp and you should just stop washing your hair completely to avoid getting lice, but just because someone has lice doesn't mean that they're dirty or gross. And if anything, it means that they have a really nice, healthy, livable scalp. The next myth is another one that I hear from clients all the time, and that is if it's been several months since the last time you colored your hair, there's no more color in it, once it's faded and all washed out, you're good to go and you're back to virgin hair again. That is not true at all whatsoever. The only time that that statement would be accurate is if you just apply a semi-permanent direct dye, something that you're not mixing up with developer. It's literally just color that you're just putting directly onto your hair and it's just staining it, and it's temporary. It washes out after a few shampoos because it's not creating a chemical reaction on your hair. So it's not going deep into the cuticle. It's just sitting right on top. So yes, once it washes out, then you don't have color in your hair anymore. But if you have used anything that was mixed with a developer and it created some type of chemical reaction that you applied to your hair, even if it's been months, even if it looks like the color's not in there anymore, your hair is not considered virgin anymore. So if you were going to get your hair colored, especially if you were going to get it lightened, that is information you would need to tell your hairstylist. So if you colored your hair 4 months ago and it doesn't look to you like there's any color still left in your hair, and your hairstylist goes and asks, do you have any color in your hair? You still should disclose that you colored it 4 months ago. Telling them, no, there's nothing left in it, is misleading. It may not turn out the way that they predicted it to because they're thinking your hair is virgin, but there actually is something still left in it. Especially if you use box dye, that drives so deep into the cuticle, and when you look at it in the mirror, it may not look like you still have that color in there, but it can still be hidden really deep down in your hair cuticle. And so when you go to lighten it or do anything that's like opening the cuticle up, it'll pull that remaining color right out to the surface and be a hot mess. The next one is washing your hair every day is bad for your hair. And I know that I promote all the time not washing your hair every day, and I'm sure you've heard other hairstylists tell you this a bunch of times, and so you're probably like, So it's not that the actual act of shampooing your hair every day is necessarily bad. The reason why hairstylists tell you that you shouldn't wash it every single day is because, first of all, if you have any artificial color in your hair, like if it's color treated at all, the more you wash it, the more your color is gonna fade. Also, if you're somebody who uses heat on your hair every single time you wash it, like say you wash your hair and then you blow dry it and then you either flat iron it or you add curls or something like that with a hot tool, the more often you're washing your hair, that means the more often you're applying heat to it as well. And we all know that heat can be very damaging to your hair, and especially the more often you're doing it. Also, when hair is wet is when it's at its most fragile state. So a lot of breakage can occur when it's wet if you're not careful, depending on, how you're brushing through it, what you're doing to it, what kind of towel you're using, etc. Also, if you're using really crappy shampoo and conditioner, something that has a lot of harsh sulfates in it, parabens, silicones, that stuff isn't great for your hair, so using it every single day on your hair isn't a good idea. But if you are using a good shampoo and conditioner, it's not necessarily that the act of actually washing it is what's bad. It's just that putting your hair through that process every single day, depending on your hair care routine, like I said, if you apply heat to it, if it's color treated, etc., can put a lot of strain on your hair, basically. But if you are someone who doesn't color your hair, you let it air dry usually, you're just kind of like a wash and go kind of person, then it's not a terrible thing to do. If you feel like you need to wash your hair every day, then that's fine, have at it. Oh, the next one, this is something that I was never really aware of. Like, I never heard this myth before, but ever since I started working in a salon, I've had a handful of people say this to me, and I'm like, and the myth is that coloring your hair will make your natural color darker, or it will change your natural color in some type of way. Actually, no, I have heard this one before. I remember I went to school with this girl that was a natural redhead, and she never colored her hair because she was so scared that it was gonna ruin her natural hair color. So I have heard this one before. I've had clients come in who were natural blondes at some point in their life, and then they started coloring their hair years ago, and now they tell me that their hair grows in darker ever since they started coloring it. This one is definitely a myth and not true at all, but I can understand why people think that it's true. So say you are somebody who is a natural blonde, your hair's like a medium blonde color, right? And you start getting highlights, you start lightening your hair to make it even blonder. Now, anytime your roots grow in, you only have a little bit of root. I feel like it always looks a lot darker than when it's all grown out. There's a few reasons for that. Number one, it's fresh baby virgin hair that's just grown out of your scalp. It hasn't been exposed to the environment. It hasn't been exposed to the sun. Environmental exposure, sun exposure, those things will lighten your hair a little bit. Also, when your hair from like here down is all lightened, it's a lighter color than your natural color. When your root starts to grow in, your natural color is going to look even darker than it actually is because you're comparing it to a lighter color. The other thing is that as we get older, our hair color just changes sometimes. Usually most people have lighter hair when they're younger, and then it just kind of gets a little bit darker as they age. My brother, for example, when he was little, he had a really light brown, kind of like dark blonde. It was beautiful. Now his hair is as dark as my natural color is. It's like a very ashy dark brown. He's never colored his hair in his entire life. It just got darker over time as he got older. That happens to a lot of people. I see a lot of people now who have like a dirty blonde kind of color, and they tell me that, oh, as a kid, their hair was super light blonde. And our natural hair color can change too because of hormones, any medications that we're taking, a bunch of different things can affect it. But coloring it specifically isn't going to change. Like, of course, it's going to change the color of your hair, but that new fresh color that's growing out of your scalp isn't going to be affected. And then the last one is cutting your hair will make it grow faster. Now this one is like sort of a myth, but sort of true. So let me explain. You maybe have heard a hairstylist tell you that, oh, if you're trying to grow your hair out, make sure that you're getting regular trims. Now, it's not the actual act of cutting your hair that is stimulating growth or making it grow any quicker. The hair that's growing out of your scalp is going to just grow at the same rate regardless. This is something that has happened to me, and I hear other people say it all the time. Your hair will get to a certain length and then it just feels like it doesn't grow past that length at all. Like it just stops and then that's it. But the thing is, your hair hasn't stopped growing. It's still growing out of your scalp, but when you get split ends, they're gonna just keep splitting and splitting and splitting, eventually break off. And so when you have a lot of dead ends, a lot of breakage, a lot of splits, it's gonna just keep breaking from the bottom, and it's going to appear as though your hair's not getting any longer because it's getting to a certain point, and then one by one the strands are just kind of breaking off. So getting a haircut will remove those dead broken ends, and so your hair will stay nice and strong and healthy. It won't break off at the bottom, and then as it continues to grow out of your scalp, it will get longer and longer. Anyway, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it and found it entertaining and maybe even learned something. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. It helps my channel out a lot. Also, make sure you're subscribed and you hit that bell notification, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye.